All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to TXC Tells All. So today we have fantastic guests. We're talking about life after law school. So we have three great, successful attorneys on with us who are going to talk about their journey after they graduated law school. We, as you guys know on TXC Tells All, we talk about all sorts of different issues, including the law school journey, studying for the bar exam, getting a job after law school, all of that. So we are going to hear from some real live attorneys, their wins, their struggles, their challenges, the good, the bad, and the ugly about life after law school. So before we get into that, I want to give you guys, everyone, a chance to introduce themselves, tell our audience three things: where you're from, what type of law you practice now, and how many years you've been practicing, so they can get, and of course your name, so that our viewers can get an idea of where you are in your law school journey. So your name, where you're from, how many years, what type of law you practice, and how many years you've been practicing law.
Yes, and if you're not practicing law anymore, just how many years you've been out of law school.
That too.
We do the ladies first. Annalise or Zachary?
I can go first. My name is Annalise Codrington. I was born and raised in Nottingham, England, and I moved to Atlanta when I was 17, so now I'm based here in Atlanta. I practice insurance defense at Chartwell Law, and I am 5 years out of law school.
Welcome, welcome.
Yeah, my name is Thakura Kason. I'm from Baltimore. I graduated in May of 2020 and I passed the bar in December. So I've been out of law school for approximately 2 years, but practicing for almost 2 years as well. I currently do nonprofit corporate law. I work at 2 nonprofit organizations, and previously I've also done a lot of personal injury law.
Okay, welcome, Thakura.
And I guess it's my turn. My name is Clive Davis. I am located currently in Atlanta with roots in New Jersey and New York prior to transitioning to Atlanta. I guess I'm the only recovering lawyer in that I no longer practice law. I started out as a corporate transactional lawyer on Wall Street. I did the standard rotation through a big name law firm, did a little general banking, a little M&A, a little bit of real estate, and ultimately I settled as a capital markets attorney. So I was doing debt and equity offerings and transactions for investment banks and by extension their clients. So I did that for a number of years before transitioning into in-house counsel, and then later went on to some compliance roles. And then after leaving corporate life, got into real estate, which we'll get into.
Okay. Well, you have a wealth of experience at post-law school. So that's good for our viewers who, they dibble and dabble in different interests. So that'll be great that you have a variety of things. If you're new to the channel, Tracy and I are both attorneys. We've been out of law school. We've been out of law school for 11 years. And I currently practice veterans law. And we have a pre-law law school and beyond playlist. So if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button so that it pushes out to the YouTube algorithm. I know we always hear positive feedback from our viewers about things. So if you hit the like button, it sends it out to the YouTube algorithm so that other people can view the information. And hopefully on today's video, you'll get some information that, if you're an aspiring lawyer, if you're a current law student, if you are a new lawyer, just graduated from law school, you'll get something from this panel today, because we have people from 2 years out to up to 25 years after law school. So it runs the gamut. Trace?
Yep. So before we jump into our Q&A.
Oh, Trace, introduce yourself too, because.
Oh yeah. So like we said, I'm Tracy. We went to law school together. So we've been out of law school. We graduated in 2011. I actually do employment discrimination law. I used to work for a law firm, and in 2020, I joined my husband and we have our own firm. So I do employment discrimination law strictly, but the firm does employment, personal injury, and criminal. So that's what I'm doing now. And I'm from New York. So. But yeah, so let's get into some of these icebreakers. We're going to do a couple icebreakers before we get into our Q&A session with Clive, Annalise, and Thakura. So Larita, you want to hit us off with our first icebreaker question?
Sure, sure. Okay, so I know you guys have been out of law school different times, but I know certain things I can remember from being in law school. So my first icebreaker question is for everyone, what's one law school class that you remember and why? It can be your favorite one or the one that you despise the most. Dig deep, think about it. Because sometimes you remember the negative things, but then you also, if you have some professors that you kept in touch with, it might be the positive class, you know, the positive things you remember about that class. Because for me, I keep in touch with my contracts professor and my legal writing professor. So those are two classes that I remember and that I didn't like them going through it, but I actually realized how impactful those professors were to the point that those are still part of my network. So what about you guys?
Let's see. Probably con law. I absolutely loved con law, like
Okay.
or nerd. So much so, I mean, when we had to take our final exam, I memorized a portion of I'm trying to remember what case it was. It could have been Planned Parenthood, Casey, something like that. One of those cases, and I memorized, what was in that case for the exam, and I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm actually writing this word for word. I better get in this exam, and because I just remember that exam being so tough.
Okay.
And my professor was Professor John Cole, and he's such an amazing professor. He's retired now, but
Okay.
and he also taught crim law 1L year, and
Mhm.
yeah, he's one of my favorite professors.
Okay, well, that's a good experience.
Okay.
Clive, what that?
So the one that comes to mind is a class I took with Kimberly Crenshaw. So I had the pleasure, so this is back in 1995, I think it was. She was a UCLA law school professor, and then I don't know if she took a sabbatical or however she maneuvered it, but she taught law at Columbia for that year. And so her class was difficult to get into. Everyone was clamoring to get into her class. So I took a course with her. I think it was Race and Law. I forget the title, but I think that was it. I didn't appreciate the genius that I was exposed to until later. And I started to get exposure to who she is and what her contributions have been. So that's the class that's probably the most memorable. I have no recollection what grade or whatever I got in there, but I just recall having the benefit of being in front of genius.
Right. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Thackeray?
For me, it was torts because we were just consistently talking about negligence. And I was like, is that the whole class? And then at that semester, I actually got into a car accident. And I remember being on the phone with the insurance company because it actually was like a government official who had hit me. And I was on the phone with it and they was like, we can't essentially go after them. And I just remember spewing all this stuff that I had learned in towards like, no, they don't have immunity because of this. And I was just going on and on about like stuff that we had learned in towards. So I remember it just automatically being ready to use that. And then when the police, like when we had got out the car, they were like, we're law students. Like you guys hit the wrong person. We're ready.
Not today, right?
They probably like, oh Lord, they just learned something new. They trying to use it in us right now.
Right. Right. Not today. Not today. Well, that's good. So everybody seems like they had a different kind of favorite class or something that was memorable to them. You had common law, torts, race in the law, legal writing. I know for me, I'll say the one I didn't like, Civ Pro. I wish they would have just used more, like I understand it now, civil procedure, it makes perfect sense. You file a lawsuit, but when they're in class, it was such a foreign concept, I guess, that it didn't register. But I think it maybe could be taught differently, but I'll digress from that. That's another story from another day. So our next icebreaker is, I'm going to preface it with, I know we practice all different areas of law, but just for a moment, throw that out the window that you're just an attorney and somebody comes to you and says, you're going to be the lead attorney on one of these cases. Which one would you pick? So you either can be the attorney for Johnny Depp in his defamation case against his ex-wife. Hopefully we've all heard of these. I try to pick ones that were popular. So you're either the lead attorney for Johnny Depp in his defamation case against his ex-wife, or you're the lead attorney in the O.J. Simpson murder trial, or you are the prosecutor in the George Floyd case, or what was my last one? Or you are, you're defending Jussie Smollett in his felony, felony disorderly conduct for falsifying a police report case. So your choices are Jussie, prosecutor in George Floyd case, O.J. Simpson, you're defending O.J., or you're representing Johnny Depp in the defamation case. Which one would you pick if you had to pick one?
For me, it's no contest. I'd be the prosecutor in the George Floyd case.
Okay.
That's
Civil
my
rights.
pick too.
You too. What
Yeah,
about you,
I'll be
Zachary?
the prosecutor.
Yeah, I would agree with that just because I have so much passion for civil rights. So to be able to bring that to the courtroom, I think from a standpoint of ease, I would pick Johnny Depp's case because I feel like he had a good case. So from a standpoint of ease, I would pick that one.
Gotcha. Okay.
I know the lady that was the lead in Johnny Depp, so she definitely, her career has excelled after representing him. And I guess even with the O.J. Simpson case, like that was a long time ago, but everybody that was on that dream team has, continued to be successful. I remember thinking about, I wanted to be just like Johnny Cochran when I grew up. Like that was the gold standard from back in the day from the O.J. Simpson case. So I'm just like, obviously he was already good before he was on that trial, but getting off let me not say my judgment about that case. Getting somebody off is always a good thing, whether they were really guilty or not. So I think the dream team did a good job.
Right. I don't know if I want to be the lead attorney in that case, but I would like to learn from Johnny if I had the opportunity. That would have been nice. So I'm sorry,
I think I'm old enough to, among the group. I was actually in law school during the OJ trial. So can you imagine being a law student and the biggest criminal trial in US history is playing out while you are attending law school class. So, and watching with your fellow law students.
Right, because that was one of the first
that.
televised ones, right? Because
that's
a lot of times it wasn't on TV a lot. It was like everybody was crowding around. Even my mom worked at a college and they had a TV like in the main area and everybody was crowded around it. Because like normally these trials are not on TV. It was a really big deal. I remember watching like with all the other college students, like, what's going on here? So yeah, I think it was a while ago, but yeah, the George Floyd case, I guess, is like, I know Thacker was interested in civil rights, so I think that will be impactful. I think it will be also like a lot weighing on your shoulders with that case. But I know that making sure you have the right people in those positions to even decide to prosecute on that case, is important. So that's interesting. Everybody has that.
Right. All right. Last icebreaker, y'all. If you didn't go to law school, what career path do you think you would have chosen?
Ooh, well, I have two because law school was my backup plan. So first, I wanted to be a doctor, possibly like a surgeon and then a pediatrician. And then I realized you have to go to med school and deal with cadavers. I was like, no, I don't like dead bodies. So I'm going to become a fashion designer, but I couldn't get to fashion school. So I was just going to get my degree in journalism, try and, work for Vogue. But yeah, now I practice insurance events, but I love it.
Right. No, I'm sure your family would have never guessed that like law school is a backup plan. Usually people like, I want to go be a lawyer. She's like, that's my backup plan.
Right. It doesn't work out, right.
Inside speaks to her more.
Fashion designer.
Right. Clive or Thacker. Well, I guess Clive, you're doing what you would have done.
Yeah, mine's not a surprise. I probably would have gone into the type of commercial real estate that I'm focused on today. It's funny because when I went to law school, I didn't necessarily expect to practice law traditionally. To be honest, I didn't really know what traditional law was at the time. But I knew and had heard, like probably everyone here, I had heard that with a law degree, you have so many options, there's so many things you can do with that skill set. So I was like, until I figure out who I want to be when I grow up, let me go do this law school thing. And then we'll figure out where that takes me.
Okay. And for those of you who are watching, Clive does real estate, commercial real estate. We did a whole video on, if you're new to our channel, we have investment playlist. So we did a video about syndications. And if you're interested, if you're busy professional don't have time to do it yourself, you can invest as a passive investor and have somebody like Clyde be the general investor handling all the day-to-day stuff, and you invest passively and can benefit from real estate business investment if that's what you want to do as far as your portfolio. So check out that video too if you haven't already. So it gives you kind of idea. I know some people think that you become a lawyer and you're just going to be magically rich. And then I found out that was not true. So I had to find out other ways to have multiple streams of income. So investing in syndications I became familiar with that and found out that was possibly something I could do as part of my real estate portfolio or my just investment portfolio. So Clive does that full time. So check that out, and then you can reach out to him separately if you want to reach out to him for further information.
Mm-hmm. Well, Thackeray, what's your alternative career if not a lawyer?
I think that's something in HR because it kind of overlaps like within like the employment law sector. So a lot of the things that employment attorneys have to do in regards to like knowledge and knows people in HR often have to know as well. So I think doing something with that. Also real estate as well, because I'm currently a licensed realtor. So I feel like that's probably another path I would have been interested in if I didn't attend law school. So.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. All right, so that's the icebreakers. We're gonna kind of get into the Q&A, life after law school questions. So I know when I graduated from law school, one of the biggest things that I saw in getting my first job was, a lot of the jobs that I was applying for, and I was going for like, the traditional associate attorney positions in employment law firms, was, I want somebody, or these firms were saying, we want somebody with 3 to 5 years of experience. If you weren't going to be like a legal fellow or a law clerk, it's like 3 to 5 years of experience. And I was like, well, I have 0 to 1. Like, so where am I supposed to get this 3 to 5 years of experience that most of these firms that I'm applying to want? I wasn't transitioning from a summer clerkship or a summer internship with the law firm. I was coming out of law school just organically looking for work. And that was the issue. I was like, somebody's got to give me a shot so I can get to this 3 to 5 years of experience. So in your experience, did you have trouble finding your first job? And if so, did you have any creative things that you used to try to get your first opportunity? Like, give the viewers a little, because we get questions about that too. Like, when I get out of here and I pass the bar, how am I supposed to find my first job? Should I have it lined up before law school? So just tell us a little bit about, finding your first job and if you had any challenges with that.
Well,
I guess. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I got my first job out of law school after I passed the bar exam. So what I always recommend to law students is, start early. So towards like the end of 2L year, beginning of 3L year, like apply to all of every single interview for every job that you're interested in, so that once you get close to graduation, you're in your last semester, you have something lined up. But if you don't, then that's okay, and it's not the end of the world. I didn't have an actual job lined up. I had an apprenticeship at the Solicitor General's office in DeKalb County. And so there was a group of us, I think about 5 of us, and I was hoping that I would be one of them that would, get one of the open positions once I passed the bar exam. But unfortunately, I didn't. So my struggle, was, finding a job after law school, given that I didn't pass the bar exam, and, everyone wanted you to have, a license, not just a law degree.
Right.
So I did lots of different side jobs while I was applying for. I applied for everything, lots of different clerkships, even just to be a paralegal in, someone's law firm, just to get, my foot in the door somehow. I would write briefs for attorneys on the side as I studied for the bar, and then even before I passed, I was lucky enough to get a job. I clerked for a judge in Clayton County. And so that was my journey to getting my first job out of law school.
And are you at the same job that you got when you got out, or have you transitioned to another?
Yes.
Okay.
So I clerked for almost 2 years, and I became interested in personal injury, and I really was interested in both like criminal and civil. And going into law school, I wanted to be a prosecutor and thought I would end up being a prosecutor. But I was so interested in all the civil cases that I saw as a staff attorney, and so I ended up joining a firm in Atlanta, practice insurance defense. So I was at that firm for about almost 2 years, and then I moved to a different firm. And so I'm still practicing insurance defense now, and I love it. People come up to me and they say, "Oh my gosh, you're on the dark side, or you're too nice to practice insurance defense." But
You're the ones that's not trying to settle, huh? Just settle.
you're not getting any money. Just kidding.
We know. No.
Okay. Clive or Thacker, what about you guys? What was your journey?
Yeah, so my journey was looking back, I realized how fortunate and how privileged I was in that I knew I summered at the firm that I ultimately was hired by. So after my 2L year, I had a summer position at the firm. What was interesting about that is I just recall this whole experience was a different world for me. I'm the first in my family to go to college. Obviously, the first to go to law school. All of these firsts. So I was entering into this new world. And so as a summer associate, I recall making at the time, I think it was like $87,000, which was a lot of money back then. And I recalled my father, who had worked like 16-hour shifts most of my life. The most he had ever made in a year was like 60,000. So on an annualized basis, I was making 87,000 as a summer associate. So I did that I interviewed after my 1L year, I think, and got that summer position. And then ultimately an offer was extended to me. And so I didn't experience kind of being in my third year without knowing exactly where I was going to land. And so that looking back, definitely was a privilege.
Right. And I know some of our viewers have that, like, okay, what do I do? Is the end of the world? And I always try to tell them, like, try to prepare before you kind of get to the end. As Annalise says, that you can recover from it, but also she also encouraged you guys to kind of do the planning ahead of time so that you don't have the stresses necessarily. If you can avoid it, if it's possible. If not, you're gonna have to shift your focus, right? You're gonna be like, okay, since that didn't work, I need to hustle a different way to get the job. So it's not impossible, but it does require you to shift your focus and not just sit on your hands and like, oh man, I didn't get it. Okay, well, you still need to do something else. And then you have the situation where Clive, some of the people that watch us take the big law route and are doing the summers and trying to get the offers so they have their position secured. Some of them don't take the big law route and do government, or they do the smaller firm route, and then your journey is going to be a little bit different. So it's good to have different perspectives from Annalise and Clive. And then Thacker, what was your experience? Because you're the most recent one. So what was your experience coming out of law school?
So I was working with a solo practitioner starting my 2L year, and going into my 3L year, I was still working with him. And then when it was time to start applying for jobs, I just had agreed to continue to work with him. So that was kind of my experience. But after a year with working with him, I decided to move on. And I kind of saw like what you were talking about with like the 3 to 5 years with most entry-level jobs. And I was like, okay, so where is it for us new attorneys who have the experience but haven't reached 3 years?
Right.
And so one thing that I would say to combat that really is to start networking as early as you can. Like literally when you first walk through the doors, like even in college, start networking with attorneys. Because I know, no, seriously, because I think that even like people always would tell me that, but I didn't really take the advice, and I kind of isolated myself in law school. And there's so many things that are mistakes that I made or wouldn't have made had I had that guidance and had those people around me. And so people often, I think with jobs, there's so much referral through word of mouth that not even getting online, or people are willing to overlook that experience aspect if you have that personal relationship with them. So really just taking the time to learn to get to know people and not just applying through like online databases is probably like the best way to combat that, from my opinion.
Right.
Yeah, that's
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, I know I did not have the job lined up, and I actually the NELA is the National Employment Lawyers Association. So I failed the bar the first time. So then I was looking for a job, like Annalise said, without being licensed, while waiting to take the next bar exam. And I actually, networking is so important, because how I got my first job was really networking through that association, meeting lawyers at like a happy hour. And those lawyers had like almost like a not a job board, but a board where within employment lawyers, they ask each other questions. On the plaintiff side, they pose questions about cases, and somebody put my resume on that board. And that's how I got my first job. So this is something I wouldn't have personal access to, but they met me and were like, I'm gonna help you out. Send your resume, and I'll put it on this board where plaintiffs lawyers, employment lawyers talk and ask each other questions. And some law firm just called me and said, hey, we saw your resume was posted. So from that networking opportunity, they gave me a shot even without getting licensed. And then when I got licensed, so if you do need to find creative ways, networking is going to be at the top of the list to try to get something, for sure.
Right. And I was just saying, I know the people on our panel from connecting with them on LinkedIn. So if you guys are not familiar with the LinkedIn platform, it's come a long way, because I know before it wasn't as active and didn't have as many bells and whistles, but it's come a long way. And I've since connected with everybody on this panel, except for Tracy, through LinkedIn. And as you can see, from different backgrounds. And so if I'm like, okay, insurance or real estate or civil rights, I know people to reach out to. And if even though I don't use them personally, and say, hey, do you know, you use your resources and say, do you know somebody that can help me out with this situation or point me in the right direction? So I would say LinkedIn, if you haven't already, create yourself a little profile, create yourself a profile and get connected with people on there. It's a professional social media version, so it's not a Facebook or Instagram, but I think it is a resourceful and helpful tool to help you if you're looking for a job. Even if you're starting out in law school, like Thacker said, start in college, but even in law school, if you're in law school right now, connect with these people. If you're aspiring, I know some people have that in their profile, aspiring lawyer, it will connect you with other people who are in the position that you want to be to eventually. Connect with them. And most of the time, everybody in the panel agreed to come on here to share their experiences. So most of the time people are very receptive, as long as you're respectful of their time, to share kind of what they can share with you, little nuggets of advice so they can help you in your journey so you can make less mistakes. Not that you won't make any, but you'll make less mistakes and go forward with your journey. So LinkedIn, that was my little plug. LinkedIn needs to pay me for that.
All right, so next question, and we get this a lot on some of our pre-law videos where we kind of talk about going to law school and what is law school really offering you. People ask us like, what kind of courses do you take in law school? So the question is, do you feel like law school prepares you to actually become an attorney?
So I can start, and I will say that, so first of all, everyone should recognize that the law classes that you're taking are the same regardless of what law school you go to. There are foundational courses that you can go to, the best, the worst, the mediocre. They're all going to offer the same foundational courses. So then the differentiator is, quality of professors and the experience and all of the other intangibles. So I would say that law school did a good job of preparing me for kind of the corporate legal world that I entered into. That said, I would say that no law school is adequately preparing you for the reality of what it is to actually be a lawyer and to practice law. And that reality, you only experience that and get comfortable with that from actually doing. So don't think that you're going to go to law school, you're going to take XYZ class, and then you're going to be ready day one to practice law. Even as a junior associate, you're basically an apprentice to a mid-level associate who is working under a partner, depending on the setting that you step into. That was my experience. And so the early days of out of law school, the firm is effectively training you on the job by putting you on cases with more seasoned attorneys from whom hopefully you can learn on the job. And so that you can't get from law school. It can give you kind of the theoretical knowledge, but the application is what you're going to get in the real world.
Very true.
Did you take clinics, Clyde, when you were in law school?
I took a housing law clinic.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't recall any others that I took, but I took housing law for sure. That was one clinic. But then, again, I went into corporate. So that was kind of a,
Right.
I'm interested in that, but that wasn't ultimately what I navigated into.
Okay, because I know sometimes we also talk about, we have a video about that too, shameless plug, about taking law school clinics because they do offer some experience, like hands-on experience. So like you said, you get the pedagogical teaching and then you get the hands-on with the clinics where we basically were up. We had people who were depending on us. We did housing and community development clinic. And then I also did a special education clinic. But that's when I was like, oh, all the stuff that you guys taught me in these lectures, this is how I'm applying it. So that's like a little taste of it. Although you're working under a licensed attorney, so everything is not literally on your shoulders, but you're doing a lot of the hard day-to-day work. So I would suggest everyone, if they can, take at least one clinic while they're in law school too, because it kind of prepares you a little bit. It definitely showed Tracy and I, like, this is a lot of work. And people are really like, when they come to you for help as a lawyer, they're really like, save me. Like, you're not a doctor, but like, save me, because they're coming to you with their problem. They're like, fix this. And sometimes you gotta, what am I fixing? Like, what is the problem? Like, is there a real case here for us to fix? So I think the clinics by far is like, I found the most rewarding, even though they were the most challenging as well. So. And Elisa and Thakura, what about you guys?
Law school.
Thank you for calling, Elisa.
Yeah, I agree with Clive. I feel like it's like yes and no. Like, yes, it prepares you enough where you have the, the basic information and knowledge, the definitions, but then you learn more, with hands-on. So, but also, by doing, like you mentioned, Lavita, like, clinics, if you have any internships that you're taking during law school that can help you apply what you're learning as well. But then, I think back and I knew enough for my first job as a staff attorney to get by. So I knew what I had to do then. And most of the time I'm just doing legal research and, I'm writing orders for the judge. So, I knew how to do that. But in terms of practicing the law, once I entered private practice, I had no idea what I was doing, and it's basically they just throw you up to the wolves and they're like, okay, here are all these cases, like you said, Clive, here are all these cases, this is what I need you to do. And, you're learning on your feet, you're learning how to issue spot. I mean, they teach you that in law school too. But yeah, I mean, it's enough for a good start to where you start practicing and then you learn more, because I definitely know more now than I did when I graduated in 2017. We talked about interrogatories, in Civ Pro. Did I really understand what that was and how to draft them? No, but now I do.
Okay. And then Thacker, what about you? You got your money's worth in law school?
Oh, kind of echoing on what they were saying, like you get that foundational aspect and the theoretical aspect of things, but the practical aspect is kind of lacking. Like how she was saying with like interrogatories, we talk about interrogatories, but it's so different to actually prepare them and prepare for trial and do discovery and things of that nature. I think that also law school kind of misses the, I guess when you're interacting with attorneys, it's not always completely adversarial. Like you do have to build relationships with people and you easily will have to see somebody again. And in law school, you're kind of prepared in a manner where it's just like, you're always going to be on attack mode. Like we've done like simulations and things of that nature at my school. And it was kind of like everybody comes in and they're like ready to butt heads. But in reality, so often people have to settle, or like people go through mediation or arbitration, and that there's other methods to come to a resolution. So I feel like that's not often discussed as much in law school, and just that practical aspect. And I think for me coming in, I was so used to writing everything was going to be long and like drawn out. And like, you don't understand that district court judges are not reading these long memorandums that you're used to preparing in law school. They're going to be like, can this be a little condensed?
Right.
So just
That's
being
a good point.
that.
That's a good point.
Yeah, all good points. All good points.
Right. It's like you really, like you say, you do have to build a relationship because you're going to see people again and actually working things out. Yes, okay, if you're billing, because billing, yeah, we can drag this out a little longer. The client is going to pay for it, but if you really want to resolve something, you really have to come to a happy medium, like, okay, we both may not walk away, our clients may not walk away happy, but we finish with this case to move on to the next case. It's like, we can't dwell on it too long. So yeah,
Right.
you're gonna see, you'll see, we'll do this all again next week. Like, see you next week. But people actually go to happy hour was the, opposing counsel. It's not as adversarial as it, is portrayed. People watch too much Law and Order and stuff. So, but even though Law and Order, they were going out too. They were going out and having a good time and still facing each other off in court. So,
right. So one of the other things we talk about on the channel are student loans. We have a whole playlist about student loans. And obviously, as you guys, I'm sure you know, law school is an expensive endeavor. A lot of people who graduate law school have a lot of students, six-figure debt. Law school is expensive. So now being on the other side, and if you are watching this and you need some information about student loans, we also talk about student loan forgiveness. So make sure you check that out. But the question for our panel is, now being on the other side, do you feel like going to law school was a good business decision? And if so, if not, tell us why.
I think it was, because even though I'm in a lot of debt and I don't know when I will pay it back, I can afford to pay it back. And, I'm in a career that I absolutely love. The law is so diverse. You can do anything. You can practice insurance defense, commercial real estate. Like, this is so much we can do. And we also get to help people in so many different ways. So for me, it's definitely a great investment, and I'm not stressed out about my student loans. Sometimes I forget I have them, and even when I was working, a government job, whether or not I'm in a position to, afford to pay the loans back, I just love the career so much. I love, being in the law. And and if you do have a government job, then yes, there is that public loan forgiveness, which is also really, really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
Zachary, Clive. Well, Clive, you've been out longer, so.
Yeah, so I would say absolutely. It didn't feel like it at the time. I did graduate law school with six figures in debt, and it felt like a mortgage on my shoulders. So, and that ended up probably influencing the direction of my legal career and what I went on to do. But from a return on investment standpoint, I think that it was an excellent business decision, because the return on investment that I've been able to achieve as a result of making that business decision is, I don't know, it's probably 25x or 100x in terms of what I've been able to accomplish. And each of the positions that I've gone on to hold, and even what I'm doing today, a lot of that I can trace back to making that business decision. And but for that business decision, some of the opportunities I was afforded, I would not have been able to partake in. So for me, that's an easy one. Absolutely. I would do it over again, and no regrets there.
Okay.
Jacqueline?
Yeah, I would kind of echo on that. For me, one thing that I always advocate for people who are entering law school is it is a business decision. So you do want to weigh your options. If you've applied to multiple schools, look at how much financial aid you're getting, how much scholarship money you're getting, and look at that and decide as well. And also, I always negotiate anything. So I negotiated my scholarship aid as well. So I was going back and forth with 2 law schools in regards to how much money I got. So that was able to significantly decrease my debt just based on the fact that I negotiated that aspect of it. So I would advise anybody who, if they are looking at 2 different schools and they want to go to one, to, send a letter, be like, I'm interested in your school, but the school is giving me more money, and that can assist you as well.
That's a great tip. I've personally never heard anyone do that. I think, a lot of times when we're younger and new in our career, we're hesitant to do those types of negotiations, whether it be for salary with the first job or especially for school. You think, I'm getting whatever they're willing to give me, but that's great that you were able to do that. Like, if you guys are future aspiring law students, make sure you take that tip and use it. You never know. Closed mouths don't get fed. So that's a good point.
Right.
So One thing, if I might just share, is that I'm a little bit contrarian when it comes to this. So I constantly give advice that you should go to the best school, however you define that, you should go to the best school that you can get into. And I'm not saying go look at USA, whatever, today, whatever listing, however you define best in terms of your personal situation, you should go to that school. And for me, money obviously is a factor, but sometimes when faced with two decisions, sometimes going to the more expensive school is the right decision for you, depending on what it is that you plan on or want to do after law school. So for me, I knew kind of where I wanted to practice geographically. And so I went to law school in New York. I was hoping to practice in New York. I had the mindset of you practice and you're successful in New York, you can practice anywhere in the world. Then there are some law schools where you're going to be well positioned based upon the alumni population. So let's say you went to Emory. If you know that you want to practice in Atlanta and you're from Minnesota, it may be better for you to go to an Atlanta law school than a Minnesota law school, even if the Atlanta school is more costly, just because of all of the kind of perks and alumni networking and connections that you're going to need to tap into. So those are some other factors beyond just how much is it, this one is 50,000 and this one's 35. So you got to factor in that, but also all of these other things that are important for you to consider.
Yeah,
Right.
I think those are great points because I think I talked about this in one of our YouTube videos, doing an evaluation, because it is a business decision. I don't think I went straight from undergrad to law school, and I knew I wanted to go to law school since I was a kid, but I don't really think I did the type of evaluation that you guys are talking about. So for our viewers watching, I think that's so important to take all of, the advice into account and actually do that evaluation, and don't just say, oh, well, I got into this school, because I feel like that's what I did. I got into UDC in Hofstra and I want to be in DC because my friends are there. Like, it was really not an evaluation of, this is a real life business decision. This school costs thousands of dollars, just like you would evaluate buying a piece of property or investing in stocks. You should evaluate your school like that as well, pros and cons and all that. So I think those are definitely good points.
Right.
So Larita, you want to talk a little bit about challenges and wins?
Yeah. So I know you guys have been out different periods of time, so you've experienced some probably challenges, some lows, some highs. If you don't mind sharing, like, you can do either one. What's something that you like is memorable for not necessarily a good reason, it's a challenge for you, or some successes that you like, oh, I felt really good about that and I still remember it to this day. So similar to, I know, passing the bar, obviously that's a positive, memorable experience, but after the bar and just in your careers, is there something was there a client that you always remember for good or bad reason? Obviously without the names, but is there something that you remember positively or negatively, challenges that you want to share with our viewers so they know that, there's a little bit of both, like you're going to have a little bit of both in life. That's just life. So
I'm happy to start. I'll share a challenge first. So I recall my contracts professor from law school was the first Black tenured professor at Columbia. Kellis Parker is his name. And so I recall him saying in class one time that, and he was really speaking to Black students, and he was saying that part of your task or your job is to get people to suspend disbelief as to how you came to be in the room, the firm, the setting that you're in, because you're navigating uncharted territories in many respects. And so we have an additional burden of having to put people at ease, and an additional burden of having to help people do the mental gymnastics as to how is this Black guy in this boardroom with me? Like, what's his story? And so that's something when we walk into a boardroom, conference room, what have you, we have that additional burden that some of our white counterparts don't have, because it's assumed that, they should be there. And so I recall Professor Parker talking about one of your tasks is to get them to suspend disbelief. And so I recall being a junior associate at the firm that I was at, a very prestigious Wall Street firm. And I recall walking into partners' offices and you sit down, there's a little bit of small talk before they give you an assignment. And a lot of that small talk that I encountered was really them trying to figure out who are you? How is this Black guy sitting in front of me? Does he deserve to be here? What law school did you go to? And there's a lot of that I know my white counterparts, that was not their chit chat. When they sat down in front of the partner, they were talking about other things, maybe where you're from, what country club, whatever. At least in my mind, I wasn't a fly on the wall, but that was a challenge. And it was a challenge in that you felt like you were still proving yourself after going to law school, passing the bar, doing the things that you're supposed to do. And so that was a challenge. It's a reality. It obviously didn't stop me from doing what I needed to do, but it's something you should be aware of if you're a woman, if you're a minority, and you're walking into a setting that is dominated by something other than that. That is a reality that you are going to encounter.
Very true.
Yep, I'm glad you pointed that out to people. I guess it shows itself different with other people. Like you said, if you're a minority and then a woman too, we have a totally different people how people view us as well. And it's like it's kind of exhausting sometimes, but it's the reality of it. So how we deal with it, just show yourself, prove yourself that you can be capable attorney, person that needs to be an advocate for your client and keep it moving. I think
suspend disbelief. I'm gonna have to use that. I want to give credit to what's this professor's name? Suspend disbelief. I'm like, that's gonna be a new vision board, suspend disbelief for me, because I haven't heard it put that specific way. And I think that is a short and concise way of really like explaining a lot of things that you explained. Suspend disbelief. I like that. I'm gonna use that.
Professor Kellis Parker, he's no longer with us, but that was the professor, and he's.
I froze a little, guys. I don't know if you can hear me still. Can you guys?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have frozen for a second, but I think we're good now.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, so he said it to me, and at the time I didn't really have a context for the significance of what he was saying until I went to the law firm and I started to experience that. And then I set out to, okay, I see what's happening. How can I get him, in most cases it was a him, to suspend disbelief long enough for me to demonstrate that I got this.
Right.
So, yeah.
Okay. Well, that's one of the challenges. Thackeray or Annalise, you have something on the other side, and then one of you guys can, pick something in the middle.
Yeah, I would say my most memorable moment, once beginning to practice was when I got to argue my first summary judgment motion, and it was just so exhilarating, and I was like nervous at the same time, and I'm just used to doing moot court in law school. And then, I'm like, at this point, 2 to 3 years out, it was right before the pandemic, before the whole world shut down. I argued my first motion, and I just remember being so nervous, and then my throat was dry, and I was like, oh no, I'm getting sick. I hope I didn't get the Rona. And I had to go get some water, and then my hand was shaking. I was like, oh no. And, and it was just a really great, experience, the adrenaline rush. And then, I get my motion granted. I'm like, okay, great. Yeah, that's an even bigger win for myself and, for our clients. So that's one of my, most memorable moments. And I have not been in a courtroom since then, which is also kind of sad. Everything's just been, Zoom court. And, I had one other summary judgment hearing via Zoom But since then, yeah, I'm ready to get back in the actual courtroom and, argue a motion, and I haven't had any jury trials yet. So yeah, I'm ready. I miss it. I love being in court.
Well, that was good that your last time in there was a win, so that's a good thing.
Right.
So hopefully the next time you're in there, you can get a W-2.
Yeah.
So Thackeray, challenge or memorable moment. We'll let you choose.
I think I would pick a memorable moment. Like we said earlier, people come to you and you're not doctors, but they come to you and they expect you to help them. And I think one memorable case for me was it was like a civil rights case. And one of the client was the mother of a deceased young lady, and she had committed suicide. And the allegations were essentially that it was racially motivated and that she had dealt with some bullying and things of that nature. So there was a lot of work put into that to assist with that particular case. And once it was essentially over, and it was ultimately settled, but once it was essentially over, to see just like the look on the mom's face and how she felt in that moment was something that's very memorable. And just to feel that particular, like that vibe and how she felt, and just the gratitude is something that I think that as attorneys is something that we are able to facilitate, and something that's very good. So I think that would be my moment.
Yeah,
That's great.
good.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, so we're gonna ask, we appreciate your time and we want to be cognizant of that. So we're gonna move into the last two questions. My last one for you guys is, if you had to say something to an aspiring attorney, a law student, or somebody looking to go to law school and become an attorney, if you had to tell them one piece of advice, what would your advice be?
Don't do it. No, I'm kidding.
I can't. Not you, Larita.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
It's a good question. My one piece of advice would be to do not let anyone tell you no. If there's a particular law school that you want to go to, a particular internship, job that you want, anything that you want to do to get to your goal of becoming a lawyer, don't take any no's, and don't tell yourself no either. Just, push forward and just, take the steps that you need to get to where you want to be, where you see yourself going.
Good advice.
And so my advice for anyone who is thinking about going to law school, or an aspiring lawyer, is that make sure you know exactly why you are wanting to go to law school. I see a lot of people, or I've seen a lot of people who end up in law school because they're still figuring out who they are, and being a lawyer sounds sexy. And so they figure, okay, I could do that. I test well or whatever. Let me go do that and see if that's the thing. So I would say, make sure you have clarity around why you are going to law school, because if you don't have a why that you're trying to answer, you could be there for all the wrong reasons. And so because you think it's prestigious or it looks good, or your mom or your dad would be, impressed or whatever, you got to make sure that the reasons that are driving you to go to law school are substantive and are good reasons for you to be there. Otherwise, it could be a miserable experience because you're only doing it for the paper that you receive at the end. And you don't want to be in law school for 3 years and be miserable. You want to have that why that is drawing you to the finish line, and you want it to be a pleasurable experience. So that would be my advice. And then I would also say, do everything that you can to get exposure to the legal world before you actually go to law school. So even if you have to volunteer for free to shadow someone, to spend time in a firm or legal setting, or in a courthouse, whatever it is, do whatever you can, because that can help you make that final decision. Is this right for me, or is this something I'm drawn to? because you don't want to waste 3 years of your life, and more importantly, or just as importantly, you don't want to waste 3 years of tuition for something that ultimately you're not passionate about, and you're just doing it for other reasons other than this is my purpose and this is my, what I'm trying to achieve.
Yep. Oh, great point.
I would say for the people who are like first generation law students or for minorities, often they are doing a lot of things themselves. They don't have the guidance or resources other people have. So I would say seek out help and don't be scared to do that. Sometimes we feel like we have to do everything by ourselves and we just have to learn on the fly. But I would just suggest not doing that, making sure that you are talking to different people, because most of the time you aren't going through those things alone. Those feelings that you have aren't just your own feelings. So just seeking out help, talking to people. And like I said before, networking with individuals is something that I think is especially important, and not just people of color, but all different types of people. Like learning from people of different backgrounds is very important.
Very true. Larita, you want to do the last question?
You can.
About personal goals? Okay. So
Oh,
our last question is really, and if you guys don't mind sharing, if you have any personal goals, you talked a little bit about where you each are in your career right now. If you could share with us and our viewers a personal goal that you have that in the future that you're looking to attain, just to give us kind of an idea. We're always, learning and growing, even if you're 5, 10, 15, 25 years out as attorneys, we're always evolving, and we have professional and personal goals, just like people in other industries. So if you share one of your future personal goals, future professional goals that you have right now, and how briefly how you plan to attain it, what you're working on.
If not, I know some people don't want to say anything before it
happened.
So it's fine if you don't. I know on my vision board I wanted to become a judge eventually, even if I don't stay in that position. I know the job I'm at now, there's administrative law judges, and so that's the opportunity to do it that way. I ended up getting admitted to the Texas bar after I was already admitted to Maryland bar, so that I could have the opportunity to perhaps become a judge that way. So I try to find other ways. I haven't reached that goal yet, but that's still on my vision board and may be achievable, very shortly. Who knows? But I'm trying to prepare myself, always be ready. That's what they say. Opportunity plus readiness equals luck, or something like that. So always being ready for whatever opportunity that may come along. Oh, okay, Larita was interested in this and she's been talking about it and she's already prepared. This position just became open. It's yours if you want it. So always being ready. So that's something that I have on my vision board, and it can be 10 years or, 5 years out, who knows. But
yeah, I'll share mine. So I worked for a firm for about 8-9 years here in Houston. Before that, I worked for other firms, quit my job and joined, my husband started his firm straight out of law school, and I joined him. And one of our goals is in the future to have the first Black full service civil litigation firm. So where our firm has departments where we do employment, personal injury, criminal, different areas of law, and obviously advocate for minorities to come work for us and with us. So that's one of the goals that we have in the future, expanding and hiring attorneys from both of our alma maters. We went to TSU, which is the HBCU, and I went to UDC, which is the HBCU also. So we have goals in the future of having a firm that we can invite people that graduated from our firm and other firms, of course, as well, but having a Black civil litigation firm that is successful and does good work for people in our community. So that's one of our goals, is expansion in the future.
So go ahead, Thakura.
I would say my future goal is to have my own firm. Currently, I am working towards just getting the knowledge so I can feel comfortable having my own firm and working by myself. I think that was stated previously, working on someone else's dollar, and making your mistakes on someone else's dollar. So that's something that I'm trying to do now, and just get that knowledge and that experience. But to start my own thing at some point is a goal for the future.
So my personal and professional goals have nothing to do with the law or the world of legal. I would say my personal goal is really around being the first in my family to create generational wealth. And by generational wealth, I mean wealth that will impact my not yet conceived grandchildren. And so that's what I will accomplish on a personal level. And then I'm big on how can I impact underserved communities in a positive way. And so I'm planning to do some things in the real estate world that will impact those very communities. So those are kind of the personal and professional, but hopefully I will be a fully recovered lawyer not too far from now.
I like that phrase too, Clive.
I have two goals. So one day in the future, I would like to make partner, and I guess the road to get there is just mentorship from the partners that I currently work with and learning how to build my own book of business. And then I too one day would like to become a judge. That's something that I guess I became inspired to become a judge when I clerked, when I had my first clerkship. So yeah, those are my two goals. And so we'll see if, one or both happens one day.
They will. We'll see everybody back there hitting all those marks. I'm speaking it into existence.
Yes.
All right, y'all. Well, thank all of you so much for joining us today and sharing with us. I know this was enlightening for me, so I know definitely for our aspiring law students, young lawyers and attorneys that are just working out there that watch this, they definitely got some great information from you guys. If you haven't, hit that subscribe button and make sure you hit like. TXC Tells All post new videos every single week. So again, thank you guys for joining us and sharing some time with us this evening. And hopefully we'll see y'all all again. Like Larita said, LinkedIn connections definitely work. So this is testament to that.
Yes, yes. Thank you guys. See you guys in the next video.
Thanks for having us.
Yes,
All right.
thank you.